Wow. Sound issues. Greetings, everyone, and welcome to SpaceWeek Live for Sunday, November 15th, 2020. So, big week. Big week ahead, big week behind. Let's take a look. Last Thursday, SpaceX conducted their third static fire of the Starship SN8 spacecraft. In this video from Lab Padre, you can check it out real quick. And this first part is just sped up. So, all right, so a lot just happened. Well, first of all, I'm sorry, I should have mentioned at the outset, this is SpaceWeek Live, followed immediately in the same stream by the launch of SpaceX Crew-1 and a continuous coverage of 35 hours stream all the way from launch through, well, prep through launch through docking at the space station in the wee hours of Tuesday. So this is going to be a 35-hour stream. And, yeah, so anyway, getting back to the static fire, again, thanks to Lab Padre for this awesome footage. So, first thing we notice is okay. You see that spray of material, the debris that exploded from the bottom. I'm not sure exactly what that is. We've seen it before, but it doesn't bode well. I mean, there's been speculation that it, you know, was some sort of material on the pad that got just blown away, but something broke during the static fire test. And then afterwards, you can't really see it in this view, but I think in Maria Pointer's, or Boca Chica Maria's, you can kind of see, okay, so look at the bottom of the rocket. Here, okay, so right here. All right, I can't really zoom in, but underneath the SN8 rocket, you can kind of see this glowing red dripping stuff. So that it looked like molten metal or some sort of just metallic slag or something dripping out of the bottom of the of Starship. And it's not entirely clear what that material was, but it definitely shouldn't have been there. What is clear is that I'm not sure like what it actually was, because I mean we've got liquid oxygen, we've got liquid methane. I'm not sure what other liquids they might have in there. It certainly wasn't like liquefied stainless steel, that there's the kind of temperatures involved in rapidly melting, you know, steel are not are not not nearly what we're looking at here. So I'm not sure what that stuff actually was, but maybe it was some sort of hydraulic fluid or something, except it wasn't hydraulics that they lost, it was pneumatics. So if we look at this this tweet from Elon Musk, we lost vehicle pneumatics, reason unknown at the present, liquid oxygen header tank pressure is rising. So what happened after the test was, normally they would detank after a static fire, they would detank the rocket, meaning they unload all of the fuel, the oxygen and the methane, from the rocket. And once all the fuel was off of it, or out of the rocket, then they would go in with humans and, you know, clean things up. But you can't have humans on the pad when there is fuel in the rocket, unless it's a manned launch, in which case only the crew can be on the pad. Because, yeah. But he said, hopefully triggers burst disk to relieve pressure, otherwise it's going to pop the cork. So they lost control of the pneumatic systems in the rocket, and the LOX tank pressure was rising. And then a little bit later, Elon Musk tweeted that the burst disk worked, so the vehicle appears to be okay. Now, a burst disk, I don't have a picture of it handy, but and if I do a quick Google search for a burst disk, you're probably going to see some gross medical photos of a spine or something. But but it's a burst disk is basically a device that is intended to fail if the pressure gets too high. That is, the disk bursts and it releases the pressure, rather than allowing the pressure to continue building and blow up the rocket. So because of that anomaly that happened during the static fire test, we're not going to see the 15-kilometer launch of SN8 for a while yet, because they've got to investigate what happened and then fix it, which is just part of their iterative development process. So what was successful last week? So that was so it's although we don't know for sure, we don't get a lot of inside information from SpaceX development team, but I have read speculation or heard speculation that one of the Raptor engines was ruined, but there were 3 in total on Starship at the time of the test. But we'll see about that. Then on Thursday, or last Thursday, a Chinese Long March 3B successfully launched the Tiantong 102 mobile communications satellite. And there was no live stream of it, which is normal for China, but here we have the video. It's interesting how Chinese rockets, or a number of different Chinese rockets, as well as the Soyuz, at least the Soyuz, I'm not sure about other Russian rockets off the top of my head, but they have a booster design, or a strap-on booster design, where the thrust from the booster is not parallel to the thrust of the center core. That is, the booster thrust is kind of sideways, kind of diagonal, well, a little bit. Whereas the booster thrust is essentially straight up and down, unless it's gimbaling, to control the orientation of the trajectory of the rocket. But the booster thrust is kind of off to the side. It makes for a very cool looking launch. Like Soyuz. Soyuz always looks good when it launches, as opposed to the American rocket designs, or the predominantly American rocket designs, where you have for their strap-on boosters, they are parallel to the center core, or in the case of some rockets like the Falcon Heavy and the Delta IV Heavy, the boosters are in fact the same booster as the center core. It's just multiple, 3 of them strapped together. But then on Friday, ULA successfully launched an Atlas V rocket with the NROL 101 mission for the National Reconnaissance Office.
T-minus 10,
10,
9,
9,
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, Atlas ignition, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff. Liftoff to the Atlas NROL 101 mission for the National Reconnaissance Office. You are hearing the voice of Rob Kesselman providing launch vehicle ascent data.
Thank you, Ron Kesselman. So, yep, launch success after a number of delays. So first of all, this rocket was in the 531 configuration, which means 5-meter fairing, 3 solid rocket boosters, and a one-engine Centaur upper stage, which is changed from the earlier planned 551 configuration, which would have included 5 solid rocket boosters. So this launch featured Northrop Grumman's new GEM 63 SRBs, which replaced the older Aerojet Rocketdyne AJ-68 boosters. They look essentially the same, but it's a new design, new boosters. Now, so during Atlas V launches, there's always comments about the huge size of the fairing. You see there at the top of the rocket. Let's see if we can scroll back a little more. The fairing is this huge thing at the top of the rocket that takes up like half the rocket, and that is because the Centaur upper stage is entirely contained within that fairing. And I think the reason for it is to protect the Centaur upper stage. It may be for aerodynamic reasons, to flow the air around the upper stage, because they don't have an enclosed interstage section. I'm not sure. I just prompted a question that I couldn't answer, but that's good because it makes me curious to know what the answer is. But yeah, the Centaur upper stage is entirely contained within the that fairing. Now, this particular launch, so ULA has been sort of clobbered recently by technical issues and delays. This was the NROL 101 mission, and it was delayed or scrubbed 7 times. First, it was delayed from September and October, then on November 3rd, due to an upper payload environmental control system flow rate reduction after the rocket was rolled out to the launch pad. Then it was scrubbed on November 4th due to an unexpected system response from remotely commanded ground system liquid oxygen valves. Then delayed again on November 6th, and then it was delayed 3 times on November 8th, 11th, and 12th because of Hurricane Eta, which progressed from a tropical depression through tropical storm and then became a hurricane. And because of that weather, the launch was delayed a few times. Now this, sometimes you can't help it. It's just weather gets in the way and you can't launch. But in the case of NROL 44, which is the other ULA mission that we've been waiting for, that one is on the Delta IV Heavy rocket, and that one has been either delayed or scrubbed at least 12 times. I think they're on their 13th try now. It would have been really cool if they had conducted their 13th attempt on Friday the 13th, which we just had this past week. But alas, NROL 44 is not yet on the calendar. That's been delayed indefinitely. Hello, Jim. So, this past week, we learned that Jim Bridenstine will be stepping down from his position as NASA administrator when President-elect Joe Biden takes office in January. Bridenstine will have served for just shy of 33 months at that time in that position. A little background on Bridenstine. He was born in 1975, the year before me, making him the first NASA administrator who was not yet alive the last time humans walked on the moon in 1972. That fact he repeated a number of times, but it's really quite poignant to think that the leader of NASA wasn't alive when we went to the moon. It has been that long. From 1998 to 2007, he served in the U.S. Navy, flying the E-2C Hawkeye and F-18 Hornet aircraft. The E-2C looks so strange because it's a electronic surveillance command and control and communications aircraft, which is what that big disc is on top, is a big antenna array. He attained the officer rank of lieutenant commander, which is equivalent to a major in the other services. He also flew in the Rocket Racing League, which uses rocket-propelled aircraft to race. Not surprising based on the name. He worked for a year as a defense contractor, and then he served for 2 years as the executive director of the Tulsa Air and Space Museum, where he recommended to the Oklahoma Rocket Racing League administrator that they bring a race to Tulsa, which they then had and lost a bunch of money. And then he resigned, along with a couple other guys, in 2010. Then from 2010 to 2015, he served in the Navy Reserve and the Oklahoma Air National Guard. And then from 2013 to 2018, he was a member of the U.S. House of Representatives for his home state of Oklahoma, now as a Republican candidate. And then finally, in April 2018, not that long ago, but it seems like a lifetime for those of us who are following it closely, President Trump nominated Bridenstine to lead NASA. Since then, he's been a tireless voice for the agency, cheerleading the Artemis and commercial crew programs, the latter of which we're about to see come to fruition later today during the Crew-1 launch, in this very stream, in fact, unless they scrub, because the weather is looking a little dicey. Then a few days after the presidential election earlier this month, Bridenstine announced that he would be stepping down at the end of the current presidential term on January 21st, 2021. To be clear, he had planned to step down regardless of who won the presidential vote, albeit for different reasons, both political and personal, which I don't want to get into too much speculation, but yeah, the crux of the matter is that he had planned to leave one way or the other, whether Biden or Trump won. And for one thing, he wants to spend more time with his young family back in Oklahoma, which is probably the best reason there could be. Also, it's pretty customary for NASA administrators to step down when the president who nominated them leaves office. For the past few cycles, that's been the pattern that we've seen. It doesn't always happen, but that is it for last week. Now, looking ahead to this week, it's a biggie. So later today, in fact, in this very stream, if you stick around, which I hope you will, SpaceX Crew-1 finally launches, that commercial crew program I just mentioned, today at 3:15 p.m. Eastern, 8:15 p.m. GMT. The live coverage begins, and that's in, 70 minutes, something like that. Yeah, and so that's when the live coverage begins. And then the launch itself, you know what, let me bring up my calendar so I can tell you. Okay, not sure if you can see it. So, okay, we are in raw space now. Then at 3:15, the coverage begins and will be continuous for approximately 35 hours. At 7:27 p.m. Eastern, midnight 27 GMT, is the launch. So there's a few hours, there's like 4 hours of coverage prior to the launch, but that's going to include the crew suiting up and the crew being driven out to the rocket in their Tesla cars, and ascending the launch structure and walking across the gantry and entering the rocket, whatever. It's going to include all that. Anyway, so launch at 7:27. Then a couple hours later at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, there's a news conference. And then their flight time is muchly bigly delayed, or extended from the original plan. So this was supposed to launch yesterday, and they were delayed because of the wind conditions, maybe lingering winds from the Hurricane Eta, which is now gone. But The plan was for the flight from launch to docking to take about 12 hours. But since they delayed until today, the time from launch to docking is extended to about 30 hours, which is more than twice as long. Yeah. So anyway, launch is at 7:27 p.m. tonight Eastern, but docking isn't until 11 p.m. Eastern tomorrow night. That's 4 a.m. GMT. And then 12:01, and then a little less than 2 hours later, they open the hatch. So this will be at 1:40 a.m. Eastern on the 17th, on Tuesday morning, the wee hours, is the hatch opening and welcome ceremony, followed shortly thereafter by a post-docking news conference. So this stream will last until about 2:30-ish a.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday the 17th. Yeah. Then, not to leave others out of the party, on Monday, November 16th, at 8:52 p.m. Eastern, 1:52 a.m. GMT on the 17th, an Arianespace Vega rocket will launch SEOsat Ingenio and Taranis. SEOsat Ingenio, I'll call it. Ingenio is an Earth observation satellite for Spanish and French customers. And Taranis is a scientific research satellite developed by the French space agency CNES. Then on Wednesday, November 18th at 8:44 p.m. Eastern, 1:44 a.m. GMT, the Rocket Lab Electron mission Return to Sender will launch 30 small sats for a variety of customers, interestingly including Gabe Newell, the co-founder of gaming software company Valve. I wonder what that's about. Valve's in space. And this is exciting. For the first time, this time, Rocket Lab will try to recover the Electron's first stage booster by descending it on a parachute to splash down in the ocean. Then they'll fish the booster out of the water and clean it up for reuse on a later mission. They will not be attempting to snag the rocket with a helicopter this time, but that's coming. You just wait. Electron was supposed to launch later today, but it was delayed to, quote-unquote, allow the team additional time to prepare system checkouts. As we know, those of us who've been following launches, delays are the norm rather than the exception, are the rule rather than the exception. So, yes, for innumerable reasons, including weather, technical issues, and not having enough time to complete system checkouts. Then finally, not to be forgotten, on Saturday, November 21st at 12:17 p.m. Eastern, 5:17 p.m. GMT, a SpaceX Falcon 9 will launch Sentinel-6 Michael Freilich, named in honor of the late director of NASA's Earth Science Division. Sentinel-6 is a joint mission between the ESA, that's the European Space Agency, NASA, NOAA, or the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Association, CNES, the French Space Agency, and EUMETSAT to continue monitoring sea level data. So this is a continuation of previous missions that have been monitoring the condition of the world's oceans and specifically the sea levels in tracking climate change and its effects upon our world. That is it for this coming week. Let's go ahead and move on to some questions. Questions, please. Go ahead and tag my name in the chat. At some point in the unspecified future, I plan to have an assistant aggregate the questions for me so I can just look over to Discord. Here, let me get the SpaceX logo in the shot. Aggregate the questions in Discord so I can just look over and see them rather than having to scan through the chat. But Okay, not too much chat here. Let me just... So do make sure to tag my name. Just say raw space, and I'll see it highlighted in sort of an orangey salmon color, which makes it stand out from the rest of the banter. Transcode, welcome from Chile. I myself am broadcasting from the currently overcast state of North Carolina. Unlimited 1637, raw space is the best. Thank you very much. You're too kind. Microsound, methane burns blue. It's not a question, but that's true. Jero Emily 1 has questions as to whether I know what I'm talking about. That's fair. Chris V mentions that Scott Manley said that the stuff that was dropping from underneath Starship SN8 stops glowing when the light from the flames goes away, indicating that it was not in fact molten material, but was simply being illuminated by the rocket's red glare, as it were. No bombs bursting in air this time. I've seen Marcio Cumplido and others asking about my cap. You want me to wear the cap? I'll wear the cap. There. It's not a raw cap, it's a SpaceX cap. But there you go. I'm also not wearing my headset, so I can't hear anything. Let's see. Jams or Christine mentions Bennu, my cat, named after the asteroid that we just collected a sample from. We picked up Bennu. Bennu's a rescue. We picked him up. You know what? Let me drop a. I have some nice pictures of him now. Let me drop one in the whatever. See if I can find it in a timely manner. Graphics, photos, Bennu. See, I made a folder for him. Recent photo. Here we go. There's Bennu. Yeah, he's precocious. He gets himself into trouble. He was born back in May, so he's about 5.5 months old now. June, July, August, September, whatever. Simple math. But yeah, so sometimes he drops in, jumps up on me, climbs up on my shoulder, and wraps himself around my face while I'm trying to stream. Oh, and I just noticed, welcome, MariaCKoutoudjian has been a member. She was, in fact, our very first member on this channel, back when memberships were enabled a couple months ago. And she just upgraded her membership to Rawstronaut from Rawthling, which is what she was at before. So thank you very much, Maria, and welcome to the Rawstronauts. Boop. Let's see. Heaven's Gems 7 says it's interesting how many satellites, or how so many satellites have been sent up recently in the last few months. There have been a lot, especially considering the proliferation of small sats and microsats versus the sort of older model of big, bulky sats. Taylor Sanchez has a loved one who works for SpaceX. That's very cool. See if they can get some of that sweet 4K raw footage for us. Okay, scanning. Regarding the Atlas V's huge payload fairing, Warhawk Me says that the payload fairing is so big due to structural reasons per NASA. So there you go, structural reasons. DKS 13827 asks, what happens to our moon landings now? That's a great question. This was asked while I was talking about Jim Bridenstine departing NASA in January. So Jim Bridenstine the Artemis mission was conceived of prior to Bridenstine's tenure, but Bridenstine has been a big advocate for it, as we've seen so many times. Talking about the first woman and the next man landing on the, moon in an American launched rocket or whatever. But 2024 was never a realistic goal. I mean, as time has progressed, it has become less realistic. There may be political reasons for having used 2024 as the target date to launch to the moon, because that would have been the last year of a Trump second term, had he won. Because remember, Trump was the guy that put Bridenstine in his position. But regardless, due to the long development process, much delayed and much over budget of the SLS rocket and other systems that don't even exist yet that we will need to go to the moon, 2024 was never going to happen. It is, at this point, we have no idea what, we have some idea because he's been a politician forever and it has already weighed in on some of these topics like prioritization of science in space and human exploration and things like that. But we don't know what Biden's policy is going to be once he gets into office, his space policy. The anticipation, though, is that Artemis will proceed just on with a date further in the future, maybe the late 2020s, 2028, something like that. But I think it would be, I don't think there's any anticipation the program is going to be scrapped, but, we'll just have to wait and see. And petition your congressperson, if you're in the United States, to encourage, him to push for space, because we want we want this to go forward, even if it's overdue and over budget. Bodybuilder Muscle Champ, by the way, congrats on the gains. Good riddance to Space Force. I don't think Space Force is going away. I mean, it's a new branch of the military that was created by an act of Congress. And it's there. I mean, it's largely a reorganization of the U.S. Space Command of the United States Air Force that that already existed. So the mission is not much changed from what it was. They've just been organized into their own branch, similarly to how the Air Force was organized from from what used to be the Army Air Corps in World War II. So, let's make sure to keep... Now, I know that the departure of Biden and the fact that the administration will be changing, as well as the presidential election, those are political topics, but let's keep politics out of the chat so that we can keep the chat, make the chat great again. If you, oh, that was terrible. All right. Searching for more questions. Yeah, moderators, thank you for the help. I can't do that right now. James Smallberries, condolences for that. Is the launch time still set for 7/24? I believe so. Let me see. SpaceX. So the last tweet from SpaceX was 4 hours ago, and all systems were go at that time. However, they are looking at a 50% chance for weather violation, and that means that there's a flip of the coin as to whether the weather will be conducive to a launch this evening. So yeah, as with most things, including what will happen with Artemis and whether the James Webb actually launches next year, and whether Crew-1 launches this evening, we will just have to wait and see. A lot of back and forth regarding... Kriegar B says, do you guys think Boeing will finish the tests or abandon? Referring to Boeing Starliner. Oh, they're pushing forward. I'm not sure what Boeing's current status with Starliner is, but Starliner, of course, is the other crew module that was developed as part of the commercial crew program. Sort of the cousin of, or the sister of Crew Dragon. Boeing had a major issue with their test launch a few months back. Was it last year? Earlier this year? I don't even remember. I think it might have been the end of last year. In any case, they had a major issue where the internal timer on the Starliner craft was... It thought it was 11 hours later in the mission than it actually was, and so it was trying to respond to... it was trying to fix its orientation or fix its, trajectory or whatever. Used up most of its RCS fuel, RCS thruster fuel, and was unable to reach the ISS. And they did successfully alter its orbit so that they could bring it back down safely for a touchdown in New Mexico, and that was successful. So the mission was half of a success, but they never reached their destination. They never got to the ISS, which was a big deal. And so they're, I don't know what their status on that is. The Gamer 007 asks, are they going to Mars with this launch? If not, are they going to the moon or just an orbital station? So Crew-1 is going to the space station. And I believe I neglected to mention the astronaut names earlier, and shame on me for that. So this will be a Falcon 9 rocket launching the Crew Dragon spacecraft, which has been named Resilience. And this is the first operational mission, the first operational crewed mission on the Crew Dragon. Now, a few months ago, we had the Demo 2 mission, which included the crew of Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley, but that was a test flight, and they did stay on the ISS for, what was it, 1 month or 2 months, but they stayed on station for a few weeks. But that was not a full expeditionary crew. It wasn't a production mission, it was a test mission. And so they came back, and so this is now the first mission. And it will carry on it 4 astronauts. Now, the Crew Dragon is capable of carrying up to 7 passengers, or 7 crew, but for NASA missions, they'll only have 4, and those will be NASA astronauts Mike Hopkins, Victor Glover, and Shannon Walker, and Japanese astronaut Soichi Noguchi. Let me see. Boop. Yeah. So, let's see. Okay, get that countdown timer up there again. All right. Now, let's see if we can get caught up. Valve in space, that's right. Valve, of course, developed the game Half-Life, other games, and also the content delivery platform Steam, which is totally ubiquitous if you're a gamer. I'm a lifelong player of computer games, but I mean, if you want to get elitist about the term gamer, I'm not like a professional or very skilled. I just enjoy playing computer games. Rockin' Robbins 13, by the way, hello RR and Daniel C. Star and all of my other mods, Dale Duncan, and thank you again for the help. He says he can't wait for in-flight refueling of geocentric satellites, geostationary satellites. Well, we do have the who was it? Was it Northrop Grumman who has the module that attaches to a satellite to extend its useful life? They've tested it one time. It's very cool. Yeah, we need more of that. Strap-on modules and refueling, and we need all that stuff to deorbit old satellites and to extend the life of still functioning ones. Oh my gosh. Joe Blow, thank you very much for that donation, $10. Have a Coffee Raw, thanks for your streams. Space Camp U.S. Space and Rocket Center. I have not been to Space Camp, but I have been to the U.S. Space and Rocket Center in Huntsville, Alabama. I took a tour, visited the Saturn V they have on exhibit there. I think there are 3 Saturn V rockets still in existence. There's one in Houston, where Mission Control is. There's one in Huntsville, where the Space and Rocket Center is. And I believe Huntsville is also where the original International Space Station control room was before they relocated it to Houston. And also at Kennedy Space Center, there's also a Saturn V, and I visited 2 out of those 3. Surprised I haven't seen any whites looking sus comments regarding Among Us, but still scanning for questions. Matthew McConaughey. Hired Gun 05 says ISRO flew in the rain last week. We need to learn to fly in bad weather for emergency and rescue missions, if no other reasons. Yeah, so, you know what? Let me look at my calendar. Long March, Atlas 5. It's interesting. Oh, right, that was Saturday. Okay, yeah. So, the ISRO launch, yeah, last Saturday. A note on the copyright protection of space agency launch footage. So if a streamer such as myself rebroadcasts footage from SpaceX or NASA or the ESA or JAXA or Roscosmos, they don't care. I mean, NASA has it explicitly written in their media usage guidelines that their content is not protected by copyright. Anybody can use it unless they're misrepresenting the NASA brand. Well, anybody can use the footage, not the logo. But for some reason, not ISRO, but Doordarshan, which is the official Indian state broadcaster of the ISRO launches, dropped a copyright claim. Hello, Benu. Hey. He ran away. He meowed and walked off. I thought we might get a cameo from the cat. Anyway, they dropped a copyright claim on the ISRO launch, or on the PSLV launch from 2 Saturdays ago, meaning that, channels such as myself all received copyright claims for having shown that video, even in a replay, like in last week's Space Week. And I had to cut the clip out of it, which is really rotten. And it does not serve Doordarshan's interest in any, well, maybe, I don't know. I guess it depends on what their mission objective is. If their mission objective is to be jerks about it, then sure. But it doesn't benefit ISRO in any way to restrict the playback of their launch footage. But anyway, so I won't be streaming any more ISRO launches in the foreseeable future because they have, at least Doordarshan has decided to be fussy about the usage of their footage. Now, if I had a camera on the ground, you know, in Sriharikota, you know, the Satish Dhawan Space Center where they launch from, then I could provide you with live coverage myself, but I don't have those sorts of resources. I'm not the BBC, nor a globetrotter. And nobody's a globetrotter right now. All right. Chris V says Falcon Heavy launches next year. I thought it was scheduled for later this year. I don't know if it's been delayed. Let me check. This isn't always so upcoming. Here, let me show you what I'm doing. So upcoming launches, Falcon Heavy. Oh, yeah, it was delayed. So, yeah, next Falcon Heavy launch is well, actually, okay, so it might launch in December. I guess the launch date's not determined yet, so we shall see. All right. So it's currently 3:04 p.m. We have 11 minutes until the live coverage of Crew-1 begins. So stick around. 11 minutes. 3:05. 10 minutes. Okay. Irfan Hussein, no, I do not play Among Us. I'm just, it's, I'm aware of, I watch a lot of game fails, and I have tween-age daughters, 13 and 14 years old, so they watch a lot of, you know, Among Us videos and stuff, so I'm familiar with it, but I have not played it myself. Hedge Enemy says, hasn't SpaceX sent a crewed mission before? Oh, and I missed another member. Welcome and thank you to Aveer Tur, Rawthling member. Welcome to the team. Crewed mission. Yes, they sent the Demo 2 mission, which with Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley a couple months ago. But that was a test mission. It wasn't a production mission. So they only stayed on station for a few weeks, whereas this Expedition 63 crew will be staying for 6 months approximately. By the way, I know that video descriptions are often sort of ignored or not noticed, but there's a lot of cool technical specifications in the video description of both the Falcon 9 and the Crew Dragon, if you want to check it out. Yeah, let's just reiterate the rules of the chat. So, in some corners of the internet, you may feel free to behave in whatever, you know, malicious fashion you want, but not here. This is a safe zone, a clean zone. You got to keep it clean, respectful, and relatively on topic, and not basically don't be a jerk is the central rule, and that includes tearing other people down, hate speech, anything like that is absolutely not tolerated here. Hedge Enemy asks, are satellites even using the full payload of a Falcon Heavy? Well, the Falcon Heavy, of course, the payload capacity varies depending on the destination. It's going to be a lot. It can carry a lot more to, for example, low Earth orbit than it can to geostationary orbit or to Mars or to Pluto. Basically, the farther away you're going, the less a rocket can carry. The payload capacity of Falcon Heavy is 140.7 thousand pounds to LEO, to low Earth orbit. To geostationary transfer orbit is less than half that at 58,900 pounds. To Mars is 37,000 pounds, and to Pluto is 7,700 pounds. And if you're watching from outside the United States, I'm sorry. I don't want to do all those kilogram conversions here live. But no, the short answer is no, especially since SpaceX has been focusing their development efforts on on Starship. That is why, one of the primary reasons why we don't have a larger payload fairing for Falcon Heavy and possibly Falcon 9. And with a larger fairing, Falcon Heavy could, for example, launch potentially, the James Webb if they were to set up a vertical integration facility for the Falcon rocket. That is, a facility in which the payload is stacked on the rocket in a vertical configuration, versus currently the Falcon Heavy is assembled horizontally and then raised vertically, which I don't think that James Webb is compatible with that, but it's too fragile, I guess. Let's see. Oh, Marcio Cumplido says, my cap is a trademark. Good heavens, I'm going to be banned. If SpaceX wants to come after me for promoting their company, then clearly our relationship is not what I thought it was. Philip says, apart from all that, ... do you know if there will be another program like Travel to Venus or a rover on Venus? Now, there was a recent increase in interest in Venus because of the discovery of a molecule in the Venusian atmosphere that was detected using spectroscopy that, according to our current understanding, is only generated by, at least in the quantities observed, only generated by life, but that bears further investigation. But that's high up in the Venusian atmosphere, not on the surface. It's very difficult to detect much of anything on the surface because of that thick layer of toxic clouds, sulfuric acid rain, and whatnot. But yeah. All right, let's see if I can wrap up here in the next couple of minutes. Down the tubes, do they need more fuel for 4 people than 2 tonight? Yes. Any difference in... And now humans, all things considered, humans don't weigh very much. 150 pounds, 250... Well, astronauts aren't 250 pounds, but, 150 to 200 pounds is not a huge amount compared to the thousands of pounds of cargo that they bring up with them, as well as the weight of the craft itself. But any change in mass does require calculations to make sure that you have enough fuel, and not too much fuel, not too little fuel. Aveer Tur asks, what's the estimated time that the Starship will launch? That's unknown, because they had that anomaly. They had that anomaly last week where they busted that well, they broke apart And so we'll have to wait and see. I mean, their Starship development has been kind of slow and steady, with, you know, interspersed with moments of rapid, you know, progress. But it won't be in the next couple of weeks, I bet, but maybe in a month or so. That's pure speculation. I'm not the foremost expert on the Starship development. The people over at Lab Padre, who I will now link in the chat, watch it 24/7. They have a live stream of the launch pad and the facilities there in Boca Chica, Texas, and they also have an ear to the ground, if you will, and they would have a much better idea of me as to how long things might take. But ultimately, we'll just have to wait and see. All right, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I know there's a couple more questions. I am sorry. I can't get to them now, but we have the live coverage starting up in just a few moments. And I thank you all for coming. If you like this sort of thing and you want to help a guy out, you can feel free to become a member. It gives you access to custom emojis and other cool perks. And yeah, I hope you enjoy this 35-hour marathon broadcast of the SpaceX Crew-1 launch to docking at the International Space Station. And I am sure to come on later, well, at a number of points throughout the stream. But until then, take care, keep it raw, and bye-bye.